Today, we're flipping the mic and bringing in the Boldly Seeking team for a special birthday week episode. We're talking about what it means to live a life of impact and legacy, not just in theory, but in action. So let's dive into what it means to boldly seek Jesus and build a life that truly matters. Hey friend, welcome to the Between the Pages podcast, where we explore navigating life's peaks and valleys with bold faith. Join us bi-weekly as we dive into meaningful conversations with guests, team members, and community leaders. Together, we'll tackle topics that challenge and encourage, helping you live out your faith between the pages of everyday life. Well, friends, we have a special episode. It is birthday week here at the Between the Pages podcast, Boldly Seeking Ministries, all the things. We are celebrating big, and I have the Boldly Seeking team here with me to celebrate birthday week. Woo! It is going to be so fun because we have a lot happening today, this week. So make sure that you are checking us out on Instagram. If you are watching this online, you're already seeing a little teaser right now. So if you are listening, I encourage you to go check out the reels on our Instagram, YouTube, because we are dropping some teasers currently, right now, as you're listening. So make sure you go check that out. But welcome, team, to the podcast.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. We are here. We are turning 5, and this is also Samantha's first podcast episode with us. So welcome.
Thanks. Excited to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited that you're here. And before we dive into all of the good content that we have for this episode, talking about living a life of impact and legacy, just want to maybe take a few seconds for you to introduce yourself to our listeners, our viewers, who you are, what you do, fun fact, favorite Bible verse if you want, what your role on the team is another thing, because also that's a teaser. All the teasers today.
All the things. Well, I'm Samantha Repking. I am a marketing director at Benedictine Living Community Duluth. I moved up here almost 2 years ago with my husband, and we have a dog, a corgi, named Frank. He's very cute.
He's the cutest.
I'm the graphic designer for the team.
Woohoo!
Love it. Fun fact, I was a barista in California when I lived there, and I met Adam Sandler. Like, that's kind of fun.
That's really fun.
That was super fun.
And my favorite Bible verse is Romans 8:28.
Nice. I love that.
Nice.
Boom. She crushed it. She was so nervous starting, and then she's already crushing her intro. Look at her.
Love it.
Well, kind of, thinking about birthday week, we got the balloons, we have the cake, the flowers, the teasers when it comes to graphic design and all the things. But one of the things that I think I've been thinking about a lot, like we're turning 5 years old, and to think through, Jenny, you've been with the team the longest, and just how much, we've walked through over the last couple years, and Samantha having joined us over the last few months, still walking through a lot in those couple months of just, wanting to live a life of impact and leaving that legacy behind. And I think it's something, with season 3, we've been talking a lot about those hot takes. And, people are always like, I want to be famous because that's how I want to be known, and how people are going to remember me, or I just want to be the most popular kid in school or the most popular person in college so everyone remembers me. And I was thinking about that a lot as we've gotten closer to birthday week, and just how, Jesus's impact and legacy, 2,000 years still standing and still being a movement across the entire world, and just the church in general and revival. He wasn't the most popular. He wasn't the king of any sort of like physical, worldly city, country. Like, he was the king of heaven and all the things, but he came down from heaven to live on this earth just like any one of us, and how he just simply came to serve and not be served. And I've been really thinking about that a lot, and just thinking, what perfect way as we're celebrating birthday week, the impact that we hope that Boldly Seeking has to our viewers and our community and listeners, but also the impact that we hope that makes not only in our own lives, but in the lives of other people as well. And just to kind of start us off, like, when you think about, when when Jesus tells us to go and make disciples of all nations, what does that kind of mean to you in your own personal faith journey and walk with the Lord?
To be honest, it's kind of intimidating because it's like, oh, that's a big project for one person to take on. But then you think about like of all the other people that have gone before you and the huge community of Christians and like new believers that are also alongside of you in that same journey, then it takes the pressure off your shoulders a little bit. And you think that you're not alone. And if everyone's going with that same goal in mind to make disciples across the nation, then it's like, oh, well, we all have a common goal. That's a lot easier to get on the same page with someone. And of course, there's going to be headbutting and stuff like that too. But I'm glad that you're not doing it alone and you can think as like our little team is supported by like a bigger, greater team and then like a huge kingdom team. It just feels like it makes us feel small, but in like a good way because we don't have to do it on our own. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think too, a lot with, what I've been thinking about this whole like going and making disciples, it's not always about trying to, what we say, convert someone to follow the Lord or to Christianity, but even more so in a way of showing up in your relationships and showing up in your friendships in a Jesus way and in a way that reflects who Jesus is, I think is far more powerful than just going up to okay, I will say going up to some person and preaching the gospel is important and it can be powerful, but if you're trying to force that onto someone, it's not going to have the same impact as just showing up and being kind to that person and to just show them love and kindness the way that Jesus continues to show us love and kindness even when we sin or fall away from him. Like he's still chasing after us. He's still going after the one, like leaving the 99 and going after the one. And I think, that's how I almost interpret that, like going and making disciples of all nations is, going out and be like Jesus, do the Jesus way, do the Jesus thing, in a world that tells you otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like sometimes it's not even sharing about Jesus right away, but it's just, again, like how you showed up. I know like some of my friends who aren't Christian, like they have said before, the way you show up for people is different. And it's like starting that conversation and planting those seeds. I feel like that's what I think about.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sure. And, going along that lines, in your own walk with the Lord, how do you, we talked about like showing up for people in everyday life, but are there any particular moments where you can recall sharing your faith with people in your everyday life? Like, was it just a spark of a conversation or, maybe someone actually truly came to you and be like, I'm really struggling with this. Can you pray for me? And it turned into that like spiritual conversation.
Do you want to go first?
You can go.
Okay. I was trying to think of a time in college where you're kind of stuck together for a whole semester in a class, and I did elementary education, so you kind of are taking those same classes with those same people, and they do really realize like, okay, something maybe is a little bit different about her. Maybe it's just, and they're curious about it in a way that's like friendly, which I really appreciated. And just thinking too, when you shared about like how Jesus wasn't popular and in the worldly sense too. I didn't live on campus, so I didn't get to do all of those kind of things and like interact with people and stuff in the dorms, but it was kind of fun to do stuff with people that didn't have to really feel religious but also felt like good, strong, solid fellowship. And I think that's a really good place to start, is to find those connections and then make that like rapport with people, so then you can have those deeper conversations. So in college we would do this thing on Mondays and we would do like headline news. So we would go around our little classroom and like share something that you did over the weekend. And it was something about, I think, either helping out when I was an intern at our church with our youth leader, and just something that had impacted me or stood out during a sermon. And I shared that with all these college kids, and then they just moved on to the next person. But someone came up to me afterward and was like, oh, I didn't know you're a Christian. That's so cool. And then like her and I could connect off of that. And that was kind of like, ooh, I don't know how people are going to react to this. But it was really cool to see like another Christian and then, have
and
that.
all it took was that like step of boldness to share your faith.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like similar to you. I was trying to think of different scenarios. I remember when I was a barista, I always took Sundays off. And people started to be like, why does she always need Sundays off?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of starting those conversations, I think. And afterwards, like, they'd be like, where do you go to church? Or
Mm-hmm.
what do you do? And a few of them ended up coming to events and kind of starting to come through there and
That's
just
cool.
like having those conversations. I remember one girl specifically was like, yeah, I used to go to a church, but it wasn't welcoming. And we kind of just worked through that. And I feel like just being someone who's open and able to like confront, people
Mhm.
have different thoughts about Christianity, and being
Mhm.
open and not afraid to talk
Yeah.
about those,
Mhm.
I think is super crucial when
Yeah.
trying to share your faith.
Absolutely. For sure. And, along with sharing like our faith with those in our circles and in our spaces, there's also this term of evangelism. And I remember as we were, thinking and starting boldly seeking, crazy enough, about this time 5 years ago, we were just wrapping up putting together the website. And, evangelism was a little bit different in 2020. There's this little small thing called COVID. And like you couldn't just like go up to someone and just like start like talking about Jesus or start evangelizing or sharing the gospel with them. It looked a little bit different. It was online. And just thinking through how we I didn't want to just write a blog. I was like, everyone else is doing a blog, but something that will be impactful and will leave a legacy and hopefully creates a community to challenge people to live a bold faith and seek after Jesus intentionally. And, evangelism then was online.
Mhm.
And how have you seen evangelism look in your life, or even talking about evangelism in this particular generation where social media is such a large
Mhm.
part of our lives? And is it different from how you grew up seeing it?
Mm. That's a good one. I think too, just like in your daily life, you have to make sure that like your heart is set in evangelism and what it means to you before you start to think about what it looks like in other people's lives. And I'm sure like when we're talking about legacy too, you think about people who have a legacy or like people who've gone before you or like mentors that you look up to and how you want to incorporate that into your own walk with the Lord, but it's got to be personalized and making sure that what works for them might not work for you. And yeah, just thinking about different times that you read the Bible or different ways to worship, and like there's different ways to evangelize too. So if someone's more introverted versus extroverted, that has a whole impact on how you choose to evangelize to people and putting that legacy forward. Obviously, Jesus is our full example in that. And I feel like we've done a really good job for like the past 5 years thinking that like, okay, who's our example? Okay, Jesus is. And it's so hard not to compare our little ministry to like other ministries, but then also thinking like, okay, maybe our impact doesn't have to be as drastic as other ministries. It's just like keeping those connections and like building that community where we've seen already, and just like following the trajectory of where it's going and then getting excited about the future and like how far God can take it way further than I think we ever thought it would go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true.
I don't even know if that answers the question.
It does.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I have like when I read that question, I had a flashback to college, and we were in an evangelism class, and I remember the professor the first day was like, every time we start class, I want people to come up and share how they shared Jesus.
Wow.
And I
Talk
remember
about intimidating.
yes. That was I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And like I'm a chattier person, but I can be kind of shy right away. I'm like, I don't know like how I'm going to do this, and I just felt really intimidated. And I remember like the first few weeks of going, I just sat and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, am I going to like have to make something up?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I remember having a moment with Jesus and just like with one of my other professors who I still talk to today, and he's just like, it's just how you show up. And like you were saying, it's more personal. It doesn't need to be you showing up to someone random on the streets and being like, have you read the Bible? It can just be
Mhm.
building those relationships
Mhm.
and asking hard questions when you
Mhm.
feel like there's the space to do so. And like you were saying at the beginning, showing up well and
Mm.
showing up kind and serving people.
Mhm.
And that's what it looks like to me now. Like,
Yeah.
I think it really started like I have to be shouting at the rooftops, but I think it's at the core how you're serving others, I guess.
Mhm.
Mhm. 'Cause especially, like, I like how you said it starts at the core because, you know, working in ministry outside of boldly seeking and, whether that's on the worship team or with the youth group, like, you have to first go and be in the upper room with the Lord
Mhm.
before anything
Yeah.
else and not just continue being like, "Oh, I'm doing this good thing and this good thing and this good thing." Like, it's the Lord Jesus wants to, like, sit with you. He wants
Mhm.
to be with you. He wants you to be with him. And,
Mhm.
like, that starts one-on-one. It's a
Mhm.
relationship. You have to put the effort into the relationship
Mhm.
for people to see that then relationship. Like, you think of people in your life, maybe, like a married couple who you're like, "Oh, I really hope that one day I have a marriage like yours."
Mhm.
Well, they've worked on that marriage
Mhm.
one-on-one, and by the way that they act is now showing other people like, "Oh, wow, like, that's something different." And that's the same what the Lord wants from us. Like,
Mhm.
he wants that one-on-one time, and by having that one-on-one time will then show in the way that we show up for others.
Yeah.
And like you said, it starts at that core. I like that.
And that's, like, not common right now
Mm-mm.
because it's, like, all selfish-centered.
Mhm.
The, like, social status is how far you can climb up the ladder, and, like, you might
Mhm.
have to push people out of the way to get there, and just kind of, like, going against the status quo and being encouraging to others and not taking someone else's success as a threat, I think is so hard.
Mhm.
And, like, that comparison can really just steal away at all that joy that you're trying to build up. And, like, Jesus might be trying to teach you something, but then if
Mhm.
you're doing that part where you're just comparing or
Mm.
just trying to climb that ladder, it's like you miss the whole point.
Yeah.
There's, like, that trend right now where it's like, I almost forgot the whole point is, and then, like, fill in the blank.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like,
I love
wow.
that.
I mean, some of them are silly, but some of them were like, yeah, really, like, we forget to, like, just look back and see how far you came and to realize, like, that was the whole point all along. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I love that because, Jenny, you and I have had a lot of these conversations, having been in this journey with Jesus for a couple years now. And, that continual, like, oh, I wish we could do more, or like there's so many
Mhm.
other people that are doing more. Like, and you're kind of like my grounding person. You and especially Meg are just those people who are like, the purpose is creating a space for people to
Mhm.
ask those hard questions that they
Mhm.
have. And like, we think of everything that we've curated from the podcast and having these hard conversations, to the blog post, to, allowing space for people to show up at refresh nights. And, sometimes I know me personally, I can get like, oh my goodness, I'm so tied up in
Mhm.
all these details. But like you said, that trend is like, this is what the whole point is.
Right,
Like, it's
right.
the whole point is to create space
Mhm.
for people to just come, ask those hard questions, and have a community where other people are asking those same questions.
Which I think you guys have done such a beautiful job just because it's like you have the podcast, you have the blog, and I feel like in our generation now, people want to kind of process those things on their
Mhm.
own and they're
Mhm.
able to like digest, but then also go to refresh and ask those questions and be with community, I think is just amazing.
Aw.
So,
Thanks. And it's so cool to, we're at 5 years,
Mhm.
and I think that's a huge accomplishment.
Mhm.
And to think back to doing the podcast in the church sanctuary,
Mhm.
and it was like poor quality. But thank you, Asher, for being our
Upping our
producer and making
game.
us look and sound really great.
Yeah.
And just thinking how God has also provided.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
I think when you're in that one-on-one space with the Lord and you're like be like, God, I want to have this impact. I don't know how.
Mhm.
Right.
I know you're going to make a way.
Mhm.
And to just give it to him to be like, here's your next stepping stone. Here's your next stepping
Mhm.
stone.
Mhm.
And just keep placing those consistently. And
Yeah.
I've seen it. I know you've seen it. I'm sure Samantha in the last couple of months that you've been with us, just seeing that with this project launch that we're launching here in a couple days. And it makes me smile. It makes me smile because wow.
Yeah.
It's like living an actual dream in reality, which
And
is so cool.
I think we can have that dream because we know that Jesus is backing it. Because people have dreams and they want to make an impact, but if they don't see the purpose in it and they don't have that backup plan or like Jesus supporting them from behind the scenes, then that's when you crash and burn out. And that's when you lose hope. And that's when you isolate yourself and keep yourself away from the people who are trying to support you or block people out. And like that's the difference is like Jesus. I don't know how people do it without him because it's like it's hard with him.
Yeah.
So to not have Jesus on your side like that or trying to do it on your own strength.
Yeah,
is
just
hard.
like reading the word. What's the verse? It's like, and now to him who's
able to do eventually more than
and
all
like
we can ask or imagine.
Yeah, like I think about that all the time when it's like, shoot, I don't know that I can do this, and it's like, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes all it takes is the yes.
Yeah.
That's all he honestly, that's sometimes all he wants is your yes.
Yeah.
And, we said yes. I said yes 5 years ago. Jenny said yes, 4 years ago? 3 years ago?
Yeah, 3?
3-ish years ago?
Sure.
Samantha said yes a couple months ago. We have friends that are saying yes and coming on soon.
Yeah.
And, looking at creating almost like this legacy in a way as a team and as a sisterhood and people who are just 1, passionate about Jesus, 2, passionate about people, and 3, passionate about sharing our gifts that God's given us with those around us. And I think that's, as a team, kind of like our driving values in a way of just keeping us like on the straight and narrow and like just pointing towards the Lord. And when you think of the word legacy, what comes to mind when you think of that word? And for you personally, what kind of legacy do you want to leave in your own life?
Immediately when this question, I was thinking of different people whose legacy mean, like I look to them and I think of my mom and just how she's always been like an open door to me, my siblings, my friends, anyone who wanted to come over to have the hard conversations. She would be there. I think of my pastor back at the church I went to in LA who literally like walked me through deconstructing the Bible and reconstructing it. And I just think of those people and I'm like, what are those things that I can take from that I want? Like when people look at me and I think of just showing up. And I think of showing up and having my faith be the center of how I do that, I guess, if that makes sense. So being kind and being patient and remembering things about people, small things, and checking in on those things. And yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's like when I think of it, it's like just being super intentional with people and being like, wow, Samantha really cares. She really cares about me and she really cares about what I'm going through, even if it feels small.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I've been trying to be better about is like caring and checking in and being consistent in people's lives.
Which is I think is so needed in this generation. Like people crave that community and to like find those people, finding friends in your life that are those kind of people that show up and they're like, I just want to make sure you're okay. And like, I'm not asking for anything in return. I think that's something that, a lot of people probably struggle with. It's like, wait, you're checking in on me. Am I in trouble? Or like, you're just saying hi. What do you want? Like, and I think unfortunately that's just how like our society has altered the way that we interact with people. It's like, what do you want from me? And it's become very individualistic, I guess, is what you can say, rather than being like, no, I want to just check in on you and see how you're doing.
Yeah.
That's good.
And I just like, I literally would start. I remember being convicted about this probably 2 years ago, and I would just write little things that my friends would tell me in my notes app or like reminders. And I'd be
Yeah.
like, hey, how was this?
Mhm.
And they were like, oh my gosh, how'd you remember that? And I just think like showing up in that way,
Mm.
I just want people to remember that
Mhm.
and know
Mhm.
that Jesus is the one who told me to do it. So,
Because you've probably had people do that for you.
yeah,
And you're like, wow, I didn't even know that they like heard me when I
care.
say that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you know how that made you feel. And now you
Yeah.
want to turn it around and like bless other people with that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I thought of legacy, I first thought of people who like honestly are dead, but they left a legacy
Yeah.
behind. So like athletes or like singers or actors who like just left this legacy that we can bask in almost and be like, wow, they were like so incredible in their talents and their skills and like thinking about that sense. And then my mind flipped to like, okay, who are people that are living a legacy right now? And like we get to be a part of watching them live it.
Mhm.
So like thinking about, yeah, I thought of like the Olympics was just a couple years ago. And like, wow, we get to be in a time where we are watching these people like beat their times and these world records. And like that feels like a legacy.
Mm.
And then like some of the biggest concerts I feel like have happened in the past couple years too. And like, wow, that's a legacy. And then just thinking of, all the different ministry aspects and like church growing and like planting and like all these missionaries going to different parts of the world, like that's a legacy. And it almost feels overwhelming. Like if everyone's being a legacy, well then, no one can have their own individualized part. But thinking how just like each person can have just a little tiny bit of it and it doesn't have to be a huge massive thing. I just thought of it as like a massive scale.
Mhm.
But like you were saying, just showing up in a friend's life or like take a week and just find one way that you can bless somebody else, like that's a legacy. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be a huge, massive following. And I think that's, like you were saying too, that people are craving and just wanting just that validation of feeling like seen and heard, which is so cool. But yeah, I first thought of like people who have lived a legacy or that they had a legacy in the past that we get to look back on.
Is there anything for you that, you know, that you've thought of like, oh, I want to leave that kind of legacy personally?
Mm-hmm. Kind of going with like Samantha's is just like knowing that people know that I care or like taking the creativity I have and being generous with that. And I love like the personalized gifts or like homemade stuff and just reminding people that like I don't know, that can go a lot longer of a way than like just buying them something.
Mhm.
So I like that kind of legacy and I look back on like the grandparents I had and like the things that I treasure are like the handmade ones
Yeah.
and like their handwriting or like a quilt that's been handmade and that kind of stuff. That just feels like a very tangible way that I can leave a legacy.
I love that,
Yeah.
especially because I think it's easy, especially now,
Yeah.
where it's like you have those gifts and you're like, "Well, I'm going to charge for it."
Right.
And
Right.
And it's like, no, I'm just giving this to you because I care about you and like I
Mhm.
want to be generous.
Yeah.
I think that's really
Thanks.
awesome.
Yeah.
that's cool. Yeah. That's so good. I think you guys hit right to the point of, you know, looking at legacy and just, showing up the way Jesus did and to
Mhm.
like, taking bits and pieces from those people that you have taken, insight from, whether that like Samantha, you're saying your mom, like opening up space to have those hard conversations and like Jenny talking about like, your grandparents like having those like tangible items from their life legacy at that point and like wanting to pass that down to your future kids and like have that legacy
Yeah.
continue.
Yep.
When I was thinking about this on the way down here today, I was just kind of like talking to myself in my car and I feel like half the time people see me and they think I'm talking on the phone and I'm truly just talking to myself, verbalizing,
Yeah.
processing out loud. I'm like, it's therapy. And I was thinking about like, yes, like leaving a legacy, showing up for people, like absolutely that's one of the legacies. But as I was thinking about like my future family and my future kids and, generations down the line, And I think to the legacy for boldly seeking, like to show up in a way that shows people to take the risk with Jesus and to like think about like, wow, she said yes to Jesus, and that was a windy road, but look where Jesus took it. And I think that's something that I have been really almost leaning into in this journey personally with boldly seeking is there's been windy roads. There has been bumps in the roads. There's been like jumps and hard lands and soft lands and all the things. But to leave the legacy of being like, I still said yes. And you can still say yes too. And to just be bold with that yes and trust God that he'll take care of it. And just for people to look back at the start of Boldly Seeking, be like, look at that legacy. Like, look where he took it. All because of all because of like just surrendering to the Lord's plan. And it's so hard. And I just posted a reel a couple days ago of Kelly's podcast talking about surrender. And it's like, it is so hard. It isn't just a one and done. It's an everyday thing. And to just leave a legacy of almost surrender to the generations from now. To be like, give it to God.
Because that's what people are afraid of, is like being forgotten when they're gone. And like people are scared of aging. And it's like there's so much wisdom in aging and so much wisdom in looking ahead, but also like reminding of where you've come from. And it doesn't have to be something scary. It's like trusting in that faith building. And it is painful sometimes and hard, but trying to remind yourself like you don't have to know the whole story in the end. It's like that's the beauty of it. It's just growing and cultivating more and more every year.
And we've kind of talked about just like some things that we can do intentionally that we're doing now that will hopefully last for the long run, like showing up for people, having those hard conversations, being thoughtful towards people and giving of our time and our talents towards people, and just living a life that reflects the Jesus way for other people to just be like, oh, wow. But thinking about, everything that comes with everyday life, because we could talk about this whole blanket thing of, things that we want to leave a legacy for, but not dive deeper into how can we keep a kingdom perspective while navigating careers, relationships, and everyday responsibilities is, I think, a question to dive deeper into, thinking about legacy. But how do we keep that kingdom perspective of legacy? Like, ultimately, our end goal is to stand at the gates of heaven and just hear the Lord say, well done, my good and faithful servant. But, right now, how can we keep that kingdom perspective of, one, our legacy, but two, just navigating this perspective in our life with relationships, careers, and so on and so forth?
I feel like I've tried to start a habit and then like it just kind of dies off because I'm either not interested in it anymore or like I run out of motivation. But thinking about like the big kingdom picture of it all, like that's motivation that I know won't run out. And so whether it's like you're starting a diet or like you're trying to exercise more and you're like, okay, this week I'll start again like this week, and all that stuff, and you plan and you like try to figure out what app to download next so you can try to stay on track and keeping that up to date, but like having people to help you with that. And again, that community, I think when you find that community to talk about the kingdom, it'll keep you motivated even when you are like, oh, this is tiring. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to eat healthy. I don't want to go on that walk. I don't want to read my Bible. But all those habits will build up to like a lifestyle. And then that lifestyle will turn into that legacy. And just keeping it up with people, I think, is so important because it's so easy to just kind of like, I'm going to skip today. And then you're going to skip tomorrow. And then you're going to skip a whole week. But trying to keep that snowball going in the right direction so that you don't run out of that motivation. I feel like that's really important.
Yeah. I think too, one thing that I've thought about with this question is keeping that kingdom perspective when life changes a lot comes down to what we had talked about before, is that one-on-one time with the Lord. And how do you keep that kingdom perspective is to keep your eyes on Jesus. And keeping your eyes on Jesus starts with being in the Word, praying, pouring into community, reaching out to your community if you have questions, like, and asking those hard questions when maybe doubt might be creeping in or comparison might be creeping in, or things are maybe not super great and you're like, I just need prayer over this.
Mhm.
I think is one way to keep that kingdom perspective when you're navigating all these different things, is to go back to the one who's constant, and that's Jesus.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I'm all on the same
Echoing.
track. Yeah. Like I was thinking of, having those habits and like starting the
Mhm.
morning with the Lord. And whether that be, I will sometimes listen to the Bible while I'm getting ready or
Mhm.
listen, or praying and just like asking God to be with you throughout your day and giving him like being like, please give me opportunities to share you. That, and then I also like having the community, like having those people in your life where I have like a few friends that I'm like always will text if it's like, hey, I really need prayer about this today.
Mhm.
And then I could probably expect like a voice note or something
Mhm.
checking in, and
Mhm.
just like having that community where you can be candid and kind of check in with each other and also be like, you got this, like
Yeah.
keep going. And it's like a few weeks ago something happened and it was like not how I had wanted to happen.
Mhm.
And my friend was like, I just don't think it was what the Lord had. And obviously that's not what you want to hear right now, but like I'm praying that he reveals that, and literally the next day revealed it. So I think just having those people where it's like they're cheering you on and you're all aligned on what the goal and the legacy is. And yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now we've kind of talked about this impact and leading a life of impact and legacy, but doing these things, we kind of have been leading into this whole faith and action part. And so let's just kind of tap into putting faith in action. And it's one thing to just believe and like have faith, but how do we live that out in real tangible ways, like living out our faith in real tangible ways? Like, yes, like showing up, but is there anything like deeper in a real and tangible way that we can do to continue to put momentum towards our faith in
Mhm.
action?
I think when I start to feel that like tug of doubt or fear, I take a look at like what I'm putting into my mind,
Mhm.
and then I'm like, well, maybe I should, not follow a few of these Instagram accounts if they're not uplifting to me.
Mhm.
I should probably cut some of these out. Or like, oh, I've really not been listening to Christian music lately, and I've been feeling it. And so trying to add those habits back in. It's amazing how good you feel when you read the Bible afterwards. It's like, wow, that actually does work. And so trying to remind yourself like those things that do make you feel genuinely good, and taking out those things that probably make you feel worse, I think is like a really good place to start. So if you're feeling like kind of stuck, or you don't see that impact and you're like, "Ugh, I just feel like I'm no one's friend right now," or I'm just not really finding my purpose, like check in with yourself and feel like what does make you feel good, and what, is taking away from that.
For sure. Anything?
Yeah, I'm
You look
just
the
thinking of
gears are
like,
like rolling.
yeah, I'm like trying how to articulate it. I just think echoing that, as well as like for me, I know like taking a walk
Mhm.
and talking to God on the walk and just
Mhm.
having a moment of like reset and being
Yeah.
like, okay, where I don't know if
Mhm.
this is answering the question,
No, it definitely
but
is. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
taking a moment to be like, where am I at?
Yeah.
And kind of like
Because otherwise
taking
you're
a
going so
pulse.
fast that you
Yeah.
don't even like see where you're headed, because it's just so blurry, and like the
Yeah.
rain's hitting the windshield and you just need to like pull over and
Yeah.
Jenny
okay.
tells me that a lot. She's like, girl, you need to go for a walk. Like, you just need to slow down.
Just yeah, it's just yeah, when you have so much on your plate, you can't even see the plate anymore. You gotta take some food off of it.
She makes me feel convicted
Oh
sometimes.
boy, I hope not.
In a good way.
But then I can't think of like, oh my gosh, Rebecca's doing so many cool things, and here I am just like twiddling my thumbs. I can't get into that
No.
comparison either.
Yeah,
So it's like
yeah.
such a good balance of being
Mhm.
like, okay, yes, moving forward, yes, slowing down when God says be still, and not like taking other people's success as a threat. It's just like I keep thinking of that too. Like, why do I feel threatened by other people's success? That has nothing to do with God's plan for me. That's his
Mhm.
plan for them.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to think of like those legacies might intercross each other and like have that cool connection, but they don't have to like
But I think that
cancel each
really
other out.
ties
Yeah.
into like, what we've had this overarching thing of, that community that will just call you out when you're like,
Mhm.
okay, you're too much. You need to calm down. I think it's probably what Jenny oftentimes would want to tell me is you're too much. Just
I don't say those words, but yeah.
but like having those people that are like, you know what, you need to take a breath and you need to breathe and be with the Lord. And I think it's a beautiful picture of being like faith in action, like that community that like, hey, it's okay, you're fine. Go take a
Level
walk,
set,
breathe.
yeah.
Yeah, like
Mhm,
level
mhm.
set. And then also, coming back into a conversation with a clear heart and a clear mind, and
Right.
you know, thinking through like our team, and this is a team impact and a team legacy, and we all play a very crucial role in the community, and on the team that I know for me is such a blessing to see both of you
Yeah.
just put your faith into action and what you're good at, and just pouring into our online community. And I first and foremost want to thank both of you, because none of this could happen without either of you and team members, present, past,
yeah.
future, all the
Yep.
things.
Mhm.
I think is a beautiful way of, that faith in action of seeing those people in your life too that have a gift. You're like, hey, Samantha, you were really good at graphic design.
Mhm.
Thoughts. Like you have a passion for people in Jesus and you're really good at what you do. Like,
Yeah.
What's your thought of joining the team? And
Mhm.
another thing kind of through our conversations that I've kind of noticed, 3 words that have come up in correlation with other words is obedience, generosity, and service.
Mm.
And how, for maybe the 2 of you, how do you make space for those in your life? Those 3 things: obedience, generosity, and service, which all play a crucial part in one,
Mhm.
putting your faith into action that then ends up leaving an impact on other people, that then leaves that legacy behind once you're with the Lord in heaven.
Immediately, I think about work, and I
Mm.
think about, I work, Benedictine is a Christian organization, but you don't have to be Christian to work
Mhm.
there. And I think a lot about this is like when I show up, how am I? Like,
Mhm.
am I a servant? Am I like taking the extra 15 minutes to go hang out with the resident? Even if I
Mhm.
have something probably that I want to go do in my office, it's
Right.
like taking that time and being intentional
Mhm.
and also being generous, like with my time or helping them with something. And I
Mhm.
think getting to know coworkers or how are you, and I think that's one place that I think you spend so much time there at
Mhm.
work, and
Yep.
it's like, how can I
Mhm.
make a difference there?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that answers.
No, it's
I
good.
keep saying that.
Yeah.
But
You're good.
It's
Be
good.
confident.
Be confident, Samantha. Be confident.
No, I definitely think of work too right away, because as a teacher, sometimes like you have those students that really do want to learn, and then you have the ones that had a really rough morning and don't want to be at school.
yeah.
And like, how do I show kindness to both of those students and give them the best that I can to make sure that they're, you know, getting met where they're at, but also pushing themselves so that they can strive for more, but also holding their hand to make sure that they can, feel
Yeah.
successful, and just finding that balance and thinking about how like Jesus had to like corral his disciples sometimes and be like,
Mhm.
guys, gather up. We're gonna,
Get
do
to keep them
this.
in line, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think of how fun it would be with like those kind of friends too, and just thinking how it still can be fun and trying to make an impact for the kingdom doesn't have to be just sit down and rigorous and all that stuff, but it can be a lot of fun. And sometimes that's what you need is just a good laugh and trying to find that generosity in a good joke or like a funny text or a meme that you can send to somebody, I think is really practical. In the obedience part of it, I think of like parents who are like, you're not listening, and the kid's like, I am listening. But like the obedience part is the part that's hard. Like we can hear God's voice and maybe like hear his calling, but then the obedience part is like the action part to it, and not just like, I hear you, God, but I'm gonna go do my own thing. But the obedience
or just ignore
part,
it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for the thought. We'll return later.
I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
The obedience part is like, okay, now I've got to put the boots on the ground and do the action part. What was the third one?
Service.
Yeah. I think that's the hard part too, because if someone knows you're a servant, they're gonna go to you and be like, oh my gosh, thank you for doing this. Can you do this next thing? And you're like, I just got done doing that one service part. Can't I, take a break? That's what I feel like sometimes. But I think being a servant is checking your heart and making sure that, okay, maybe I should say no to this one so that I have more energy for the next time that I get asked, or I can pour my heart into this part and not get so stretched thin. Those are 3 good words.
Yeah,
Those are 3 very good words. And I think, those 3 words like obedience, generosity, and service are so tied to also faith in general. And also sometimes when faith requires us to take a risk, kind of like what Jenny was leading into, that obedience when God like is calling you to do something. And he's like, it's going to take a little bit of like your time. You have to give service of your time, or you're going to have to, maybe be generous in one way or another, or you're going to have to take this risk. I think that's the beauty of faith is we serve a God who, we can say yes, and we might not know what's on the other side of the door, but he does. But we get to put our faith and trust in him, and that he's got it all taken care of. And we can have faith in that. And for the 2 of you, is there a story or a moment when your faith required you to take that risk? It's kind of a heavy question.
I know. I feel like there are times, but to pinpoint one into like a specific story is hard. I think so I went to college to be a teacher, and that's what I always wanted to do. I went to a Christian school that I now teach at, so I never thought I was really going to follow down that path. But I think working at a school that I went to was a step of faith, because you could be making more money elsewhere. But making sure that you are listening to what God has open and then stepping through that door, not knowing how long it's going to take too is really hard, because the position that I had when I started isn't the position I'm in now. So I kind of had to wait it out a little bit and just kind of grow my expertise and like my classroom management and how I support other teachers, and take that time to make sure that I was pouring into it. And it is a process you want to rush through sometimes and be like, I want to feel like a veteran teacher already.
Right.
But making sure that, it's okay to be that newbie for a while and ask those veteran teachers or like someone who else is a mentor to you to make sure you have that preparation for your future self, I think is important. And then, I don't know if that's like the main story I thought of stepping out in faith, was just that first initiation of.
It could also, and like as a risk too, because you could have absolutely hated it, or you could have just been like, I'm done after one, and then where would you be now?
Right.
Like, you never know. And now here you are being a veteran teacher and having your own classroom and doing your own thing and supporting kids and doing what you've always wanted to do. And the Lord was like, yeah, you're doing it. We just took a little bit of a different path to get there.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's like a lot of different ways it could go, of like different stories. I think of like the biggest risk I've taken was I moved to California right after college. I really just wanted to go, but that was like the only reason. And I wanted to, but I was scared. So I was like, I'll just stay.
Mhm.
And then nothing was working out in Minneapolis. Then I'm
mhm.
like, okay, I guess I gotta go.
I guess I
And-
gotta go.
And I mean, it really was like, I don't think I know my faith wouldn't be where it is now if I
Mhm.
hadn't gone and if I hadn't been
Yeah.
in the
Mm.
church that I was there. And like, I mean, there's a ton of things that I have learned from living there and then moving back and
Mhm.
the value of family, and
Yeah.
I could go on. But I
Right.
just think I really was unsure and scared to do that
Mhm.
and live with people I didn't know. But it was like, God was like, no, like you're going to go and you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see my life any other way now. So,
That's awesome.
That's so cool. I
Yeah.
love that. And it's very much like, God was like closing all these doors and he's like,
Mhm.
you did have this open, and
Yeah.
it was just kind of like you just like walk past it. He's like, no. You gotta close
Come
these
back
other
to
ones
it.
so you can like detour it back.
Yeah.
And I think God's funny in that way, because that very much, if I'm thinking, reminiscing on the last 5 years, is very much almost the same kind of concept.
Yeah.
I graduated college. I had a big girl job. Then 51 days later, COVID hit. I moved back to Duluth. I had no job. I was living back at home and I
Mhm.
had no idea what to do.
Yeah.
And I tried like figuring out what to do for a job, and every door kept closing.
Mhm.
And then there was like this one crack, and I was like, maybe not. Move along. And then, the Lord is like detouring you back of like,
Yeah.
okay, we're revisiting this.
Yeah.
Like, come back, and seeking counsel and like that opportunity of being like, okay, God's put this idea in my heart, and it keeps coming back of like, maybe this blog writing thing could be a ministry, and I don't really know how it's going to look. And sitting in the parking lot of Lakeview Covenant Church with Megan, and then later Alicia in another parking lot in the cities, two people that didn't know each other and now are best friends, and now Boldly Seeking's 5 years old, and thinking how, like, going back to what we said, that first yes is so hard.
Mhm.
You're like, yeah, I'm moving to California, or yeah, I'm gonna go back to the school that I grew up in to teach at. Like, it's a risk. It's a
Mhm.
risk, and saying yes to Boldly Seeking, and now thinking how far we've come, and the connections and the community, and now the team that we have, and even you guys saying yes to Boldly Seeking is a
Yeah.
risk, because you could have absolutely hated it, or you're like, no, this isn't for me, or just anything could have happened. A risk for me to even be like, hey, Samantha, so you're really great at graphic design. You're a cherished friend. You're a lover of Jesus, a lover of people. Like, would you want to join this team? And to just say yes in that
Mhm.
servant heartedness, and that generosity of your time and your talent, and the obedience of saying yes to the Lord, and
Mhm.
just us as a team saying, okay, Jesus, like, yes, I will. And
Mhm.
wherever you go, like, we'll go. And whatever
Mhm.
door you open, we'll open. And thank you for just saying yes and like being obedient to the calling that Jesus has. And we're also excited because we have another team member who said yes, and we've been keeping this a little bit under wraps from you all on Instagram and all the social media, but we are gonna call in, speaking of risks and taking faith in action, saying yes. We are going to introduce you all to our new team member, Grace, who's going to be helping on the blog side of the podcast until she is back up here in the Twin Ports area come 2026, where she'll be the hands and feet on the ground for Boldly Seeking in our communities. So let's give her a call and welcome her in. Hey, Grace, welcome to the podcast.
Hi,
We are so
Grace.
excited.
Hi, everyone.
We are, just talking about saying yes, going into like just saying yes to the obedience and the call that the Lord has for us. And we just told everyone that you are joining the Boldly Seeking team this year. And we are just so excited to have you on the team. And just to kind of introduce yourself to not only, Samantha, you literally just met 5 minutes ago. But to all of our viewers, our listeners, a little bit about who you are, fun facts, anything that you love to do in your free time, all the things.
Amazing. Thank you, Rebecca. So my name is Grace Rubin, and I'm super excited to be joining the Boldly Seeking team. I'm originally from Duluth, Minnesota, but I'm a current student at Bethel University in the Twin Cities studying English education. I love music, listening to it, playing it. I love reading, writing, swimming, iced coffee, and talking about Jesus.
And I will stand on the fact that she loves iced coffee, because when we were talking about her joining the team, we went on a 3-mile walk. And during this 3-mile walk, we were trying to be healthy, and we are probably like 5 minutes away from walking to a coffee shop. And I turned to Grace, I was like, so should we continue the walk and go get coffee and then walk back to our cars? And it was a 1000% yes from Grace Rubin.
No hesitation.
No hesitation. So good. Well, Grace, we're excited that you are on the team. And, why don't you just kind of tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing on the team, and then I'll kind of elaborate a little bit more once you're done.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the next 8-ish months, I will be coming on the Boldly Seeking team as a blog writer, as well as finding and helping communicate with the guest writers for the blog. Once I graduate in December, I will be moving up to Duluth and taking on a bigger role with the team, and I cannot wait to see what that looks like when it comes. I'm super, super grateful that God has provided this opportunity, and I'm really excited to share my heart for Jesus with others and be able to pour out what he's teaching me.
Absolutely. And it's Grace was actually, if you guys have been on the blog recently, was a guest writer on the blog last week.
Mm-hmm.
Jenny, you would know this. You're in charge of the blog currently. And she just was sharing her heart about the Called conference that we were at this past winter, springish, and March. And it was just so evident that she has a heart for Jesus and people and sharing the gospel that we couldn't imagine her in any other capacity than joining the team from a blog standpoint, but also her love of people as she continues to reintegrate back up here in Duluth come 2026, and being able to help us on the ground, the hands and feet of Boldly Seeking in the different places and spaces that we are in. So you'll be seeing her on the blog. You'll be seeing her on Instagram. She'll be working really closely with Jenny on gathering some guest writers, and we have some really great ideas that we're really excited to share with you all over the coming couple of months. They're going to be hitting the ground running here pretty soon, and just continue to dream me up what God has for that side of the ministry, along with a lot of big projects that we have coming up as well. That's really exciting. Grace, thinking about joining the team, you're fresh to the team as of 10 minutes ago, and we're celebrating all the things, the legacy, the impact of Boldly Seeking. And what is something that you are most excited about now joining the team, kind of looking forward in your role right now of just being a little bit more on the virtual standpoint of things, taking Boldly Seeking to the Twin Cities, but then looking ahead towards coming back to the Twin Ports and joining the team in person?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm super excited to be joining from a blog standpoint right now, because writing has always been something that I've loved and God has gifted me with. So I'm really excited that has been an opportunity I'll be able to share what God has been teaching me and what God has been placing on my heart with others. And hopefully with what I do, God is able to speak through me and plant some seeds in people in different places. And I'm just so excited to reach God's love out to others and to kind of be able to minister in a way from like kind of a background virtual standpoint for the point that I'm in for the time that I'm in the Twin Cities right now. And then I'm super excited to see what it may look like when I move back up to Duluth and see what opportunities need to be filled for the Boldly Seeking team and how I can kind of fit in to those spaces.
Yay. Well, we're so excited. We are thankful to have you on the team. But we can't wait until you are back up on a weekend so we can get the whole team together in person. We are thankful for you and taking the time to join the podcast here for a little bit. Any burning questions, friends, for our new team member?
What's your favorite flavor of cake on the topic of cake?
Yeah, there we go.
I'm just needing to know.
Ooh. Favorite flavor cake. I love just good old vanilla. I also could do some red velvet, but
Ooh.
vanilla probably.
I think we have a vanilla cake, so we'll save you a piece.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
What's the last instrument that you've played? I know you're very musical.
Last instrument I played was guitar the other night.
Oh, cool.
Nice. Love it.
So fun. So fun. Well, one thing that I think I have or will ask you guys this question. I can't remember. But what is one thing, thinking through boldly seeking, other than, being on the blog and just sharing your heart for the Lord and what Jesus is teaching you in the current moment, what is something else that you are excited for as you join the team in the standpoints of looking ahead maybe 2 years or so?
So I haven't been a part of the Boldly Seeking team, but I've known you, Rebecca, and Jenny for a while. So I feel like I won one of your giveaways probably 4 years ago. And so I've kind of seen it evolve and change into what it is now. And I'm just super excited to see it grow. And I'm already kind of seeing the people that it's touching and the people that it's reaching. And I'm excited to just be able to be a part of the team that continues to do that and continues to help God be known by everyone in the community.
I love that.
And so hopefully in 2 years, it's just God is growing it to where he wants it at that point.
So good. So good. Well, Grace, thanks for hopping in for a few minutes. We are so excited to officially introduce you to all of our friends in our community as one of our creators on the blog. And if you are joining us currently listening, make sure that you head over to our Instagram tomorrow. We are going to be doing a little meet and greet with Grace on our Instagram and Facebook page. So you'll get to know a little bit more about her on that platform after you listen to this podcast episode. So Grace, thank you so much. We can't wait to see you so soon. And we will chat with you in a bit.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, that was super fun. And I'm so excited that Grace is joining the team and all the excitingness. And, we were talking about this whole saying yes and being obedient and being a servant and thinking through everything that we have talked about. One question that is off script for you guys, but it's, I hope, an easy question. But, we've done 5 years. We have a big announcement coming out on Friday, which is exciting, which is our actual 5th birthday. And a lot of other things coming up in the coming months. But for the two of you, what is something that maybe you're most excited for this next year or looking ahead towards the future for Boldly Seeking? It could be anything. It could be a dream big thing. Mm-hmm. Samantha's like, oh my goodness.
So I'm doing that because literally yesterday, my conversation with God was, you need to chill and you need to be in the present. So I'm like, ooh. I don't know. I think just being here and like growing with you guys and soaking every minute in. I'm sorry to be that person, but that's
but it's also
that's
so
the
good.
season I'm in, I feel like. And I think just like seeing the creativity come and where it's gonna go and new merch. I don't know. Maybe more merch. I don't know.
That's exciting. I often think that like when I write a blog or when I write a study or like a mini series, I write it because I needed it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just excited to kind of listen and obey for those things that God's like, hey, I'm really touching that on your heart, or I'm opening that door for you to go see, like go peek your head in there.
Yeah.
So I'm just excited for those things that eventually we'll get to share with other people too.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure.
What about you?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. I think I'm just excited to see where Jesus just takes us, which I feel like is so like just out there and not very like
We love that.
like very like here's one thing, but you know, to one see our team grow and to be able to take on, you know, supporting our community more. Like the Lord is placing, I was talking about this the other day, the Lord is just placing people in the path of boldly seeking who have a heart for people, a heart for Jesus, and have a call to ministry and a gift that they want to share with people. And just creating a sisterhood amongst ourselves to just pour into each other in our walks with Jesus, to be able to then pour into our communities and just to continue to see the new people that join our community, the opportunities that God has for us. Like there's so many opportunities that we're already chatting about for 2026 with some people, and just what God wants us to talk about, I think is a beautiful thing where we don't really have like this defined, this is only what we do. We're like, hey God, if there's something you want to talk about, then let's talk about it. Like what's the hot take? What's the hot topic nowadays? It's so beautiful and I think so unique in its own way. But also just, you know, thinking when we're at 10 years, what all is God going to accomplish? Because I never thought we would be where we are now and the things that we're doing now, even 2 years ago. I was like, wow, if this is going to end, God, just end it now, because I don't have the brain capacity to do this. But he's like, no. We're not done. You're not done. Your team's not done. Boldly Seeking is not done. Here, I'm providing this and this and this and this. And I think, you know, going back to that impact and legacy and faith in action, it comes with the yes. And just letting Jesus provide and just show up for the team and for the ministry. I think just giving it to him to be like, here you go. We'll do the work, but you're going to lead the way.
Yeah.
I think is so beautiful and something that I'm so excited to continue to do along with the two of you and Grace and all the fun things that we have in store very soon. So Samantha, you are new to this podcast with your first Between the Pages podcast, but we like to end every episode with some type of encouragement or challenge for the listeners and the watchers. So if you could encourage someone listening to take one bold step toward living a life of impact and legacy, what would it be?
Ooh.
Jenny, you got something too? One of you two first?
I was just thinking about how like you love reading and like how like a little book club or something could be a good way that you could like get people involved, and then or like a Bible study or like a little devotional like that, get some people to gather together, have some cake maybe, read some scripture.
Samantha loves cake. That's a fun fact.
And books.
And books. Yeah, that's great. Love that.
Not to steal one for you, but
no, I think that's great. And I think just like, I keep saying this, but I think even just asking God, like, what the hard questions of like, what am I doing that's blocking me from living the legacy that you have planned for me? And like, even asking those close to you, like, what are like the blinders in my life right now that could
that's good.
push me forward? And having those conversations.
Sometimes it's hard to hear that answer too.
Hard, but so good.
So good.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that you would encourage in addition to what you already said?
Probably more cake.
More cake. Always more cake.
Always more cake. Always celebrate.
Celebrate those little milestones that God's brought you to, because it's always fun to like celebrate it. Yeah.
Bask the big and the
bask
small.
in his joy. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And invite people to celebrate with you.
Yeah.
I think is, you know, those people that are close to you probably have made some sort of impact on your life, and to just celebrate that together, I think is so important. And, you know, my little words of wisdom, encouragement would be to kind of just sit with Jesus and have an open notebook and be like, what's that one bold thing that you want me to do? Whether that's like that week or in the month or the year, and just sit there and listen and write it on that piece of paper and continue to look back at that. Like, I feel like I have a lot of pieces of paper where I'm like, hey, God, I'm just going to sit and listen to what that bold thing that you want me to do is. And one of those things was boldly seeking. And here we are.
5
Year
years
five,
later.
5 years later, a little piece of paper is still sitting there. Yeah, that would be mine. And it's been a fun journey for all of us. So
Well, we're thankful for you for even listening to that calling
Yeah.
too. So
Yeah.
don't make me cry. Such a sweet time. Well, friends, any other last minute bits, thoughts, encouragement as we wrap up this episode? No, nothing. Well, friends, you know what time it is, and it is time for you to celebrate with us. And we would love nothing more on our birthday week for you to join us on Instagram, give us a follow. We have a huge announcement coming up on Friday that you are not going to want to miss. If you want a little insider scoop, I would also recommend heading over to our website, boldlyseeking.online, and signing up for our email subscriber list, because that is where you're going to find out everything beforehand, before you even go on Instagram, before you go on Facebook, before you even probably open up this podcast. I don't know. Maybe you've already seen it. But I would encourage you to do that. And as always, we would love nothing more for a birthday present this year for you to head down to the comments, comment on this episode, like, subscribe, rate the show, because as you rate, like, subscribe, all the things, you are helping us to reach more people, to have those hard conversations, to listen to the calling that God has for us, to be bold, to say yes, to intentionally seek after Jesus as we just continue to live life in between the different pages that Jesus has for us. So thank you for celebrating with us this week. Make sure to continue on the celebration over on our Instagram and Facebook pages, because it is going to be a fun week. We are so excited, and we will see you back here in a couple of weeks, post birthday week, as we continue on in year 5 of Boldly Seeking Ministries. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe and rate our show to stay up to date on our latest episode releases. We'd love to hear from you, so head on over to our website or the gram, say hi, be encouraged, and join the movement as we continue to boldly seek after Jesus together. We'll see you next time on the Between the Pages podcast.